reserve online your ticket the day before, so they can better gauge how many people will be here. And you can see also quite a few people wearing face masks, because obviously in a crowd it's good to have that. So what can I tell you about Potala Palace that you don't already know? So this site has actually been the winter residence of the Dalai Lamas for 1,300 years, 1,300 years, since the 7th century. The original Potala Palace was built in the 7th century by the Tibetan king, let me get his name right, Songtsen Gampo. But it was destroyed a few centuries later amid warring, and just it fell into ruins and pestilence, and so it was rebuilt in its current state in 1645 and has stood like this ever since, has been renovated a few times. They make sure to always use the original materials when they renovate it, because obviously you want it to really stay as authentic as possible. So some interesting information about this place. It's mostly a museum now. The Dalai Lamas obviously don't live here anymore. But it's a museum, but people still actually do live here. There are about 400 staff who live on the site and take care of maintenance, take care of just keeping up this place. There are also 76 monks who live here on site. And very interesting, there are about 30 firefighters who are dedicated to this place, because it might not look like it from the outside, but most of this is made of wood. So obviously a tiny spark can just be disastrous for this beautiful site. So you really need to have firefighters who are constantly on call, just so that if anything happens, they are there and can really protect this beautiful place. So what can we see inside? Unfortunately, as we've seen, there's a huge queue, but also as many museums and other sites around the world, it's not possible for us to film inside. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what you can find inside. There are about 10,000 registered cultural relics, but they haven't finished registering them, so there are many more. There are ancient religious scrolls in many languages, in Tibetan, in Manchu, in Chinese. There are statues, sculptures, beautiful artifacts in precious materials, in gold, in silver, in jade. And so this is some of the stuff that you can see inside. Also very interesting, what I just found out I didn't know, 8 former Dalai Lamas are actually embalmed and rest in this place. They were embalmed and are kept in a sitting position in a sarcophagus as Buddhas, basically in a Buddha position. So what else can we say? So as I was mentioning earlier, this place was closed during the COVID pandemic. But as I think a lot of tourist sites around the world had to kind of reinvent themselves and find a new way of satisfying visitors, of satisfying fans, but also of trying to still keep interest alive. And so Potala Palace actually also organized a live stream with 2 guides taking people around through the entire Potala Palace, so that people who couldn't travel to Tibet to see this place could still see it online. And it had apparently about 1 million views, so not bad at all. So you see, even though this is an ancient place and with so much culture, but they're still moving into the 21st century and doing live streams. So everybody's doing that now. Let's see, what else can I say? There are 1,800 rooms. Like I said, there are 13 levels in this entire palace complex. When you go from the bottom of the hill all the way to the top, there are 1,800 rooms. And an interesting thing, if you look at the top right-hand window, this is where the former Dalai Lama would look down into the courtyard and observe opera performances here in the courtyard. So you see, you're like really in a place where there's a lot of history. Another thing that I find very interesting is that the windows all have fabric on top, the curtains, obviously, because it's very bright. As you can see, we're very high up, and the sun is very bright. It's shining in our eyes. So obviously you need curtains for that, but I like the fact that they put the curtains on the outside of the windows and not on the inside, so it also keeps a beautiful facade. What else can I tell you about this place? An interesting thing is also when we were first coming up this place, actually, we could see people who were doing the circuit around the base of Potala Palace, of the hill, and people apparently do this every single day. There are 3 circuits that you can do in Lhasa. There's the Old Town, there's Potala Palace, and there is the Barkor Street circuit. And it might take the entire morning to do that. So possibly people who are maybe elderly, who have more time, who can do this, because it takes the entire morning to do all 3 circuits, and some people do all 3 every single day. Doing the entire tour of the hill of Potala Palace takes about half an hour. So another thing that is kind of interesting, did you know that there are actually 2 Potala Palaces that are registered as UNESCO World Heritage Sites? You might be wondering what I'm talking about. So there's obviously this one, the very famous one that everybody knows here in Lhasa in Tibet. But there's another one, there's a replica of this Potala Palace in Chengde in Hebei province, which is about 200 kilometers northeast of Beijing. This used to be the summer retreat of the Chinese emperors, and one story is that the emperors found this palace so impressive they wanted to have a copy of it. So this one was built in 1645, and the replica in Chengde was built just about 100 years later, around 1776, around there. It was 1770s. And it looks exactly like this. It is approximately the same size, and it's part of what is now called the outlying temples of Chengde, and is also registered in the UNESCO World Heritage List, because also a unique site. So it's probably, I don't know if that's the only case in UNESCO history where you really have 2 of the same sites but in different places that are registered. So I think that's very cool, and if you don't get the chance to come to Tibet, then maybe you can visit the one in Chengde. So I think that is about it from now. We're going to try and now get in, and I'll also see it from the inside. We're sorry we can't take you with us. Obviously, as we said, like many other famous sites around the world, it's not always possible to film inside, so we can't bring you these images, but it's already quite unique to be able to come up here and be able to film inside this courtyard. So we're happy that we were able to bring you this. And hopefully you enjoyed this live stream. And stay tuned as we have more from Tibet and elsewhere in the next few days and weeks.